Hello and welcome to another episode of The Average EV. Today I am bringing you the ultimate charging guide to the Chevy Equinox EV. Let's get into it. All right, everybody, so you're watching a video about charging, and I want to take this moment to mention the sponsor for this video, Recurrent. Recurrent is an awesome website and platform that you set up. You do it online, you sign in, you connect your car, and it collects data about charging and your battery. And what's really useful about that is it compares it to other drivers of your car, like the Chevy Equinox EV, and it tells you how much range you could expect. It collects all this data over time. So maybe if you're buying a Chevy Equinox in a couple years, like a 2026, you can see how the 2024s did, and you can know what to expect as far as range. Additionally, what's really cool is that it will show you what your expected range is in different temperature and in the different months for where you live, so that you know exactly what you're getting into when it comes to your EV and its range. There's also a bunch of other benefits because maybe when you go to sell this car, you can show them your Recurrent data and show how much better your car is compared to other cars, because it will eventually give you a Recurrent score. I actually don't have a score yet on my Equinox because there's not enough data from Equinoxes, but my ID4 is a 90, which isn't great, but it's also not a 50. So that's good. But anyways, it gives you a score, and when you're working with a dealer, you can show them, hey, look, my car compared to other cars, it's doing really great as far as the battery is concerned. And maybe you can actually talk them up as far as what you would get on your trade-in, or if you're doing a private sale, maybe having a little bit higher than market price because your car is better than other cars and you can prove it. Additionally, when you go shopping for cars, especially on cars.com, you actually can see other cars' Recurrent score, and you can put in the VIN or on recurrent.com, or on cars.com, it'll actually have it embedded if it's available, and it'll show you the score. It can show you the expected range, and I find that really useful because I don't know about you, but I spend a lot of time surfing on cars.com looking at different cars, and I'm not always sure what the ranges are of cars or what the expected ranges are of the different cars, and the Recurrent data really helps me, and also helps me know as to whether the battery's in good condition or not, as to whether I would want to buy that car or not. So Recurrent is an awesome service. If you haven't already, go ahead, sign up. It is absolutely free. They really, and I've read this and I've communicated with them about this. They really care about your privacy, and they use this data basically to help you out. And eventually, companies like cars.com and dealerships, they can actually buy reports about cars, and that's how they make their money, and we get to use it for free. So again, if you haven't already, please check out Recurrent, and now let's get on with the video. All right, everybody, so here we go. I've been working on this video for a long time. I've been collecting data. I've been gaining personal experience, and I feel comfortable to present to you all my ultimate guide for EV charging. So first thing we need to talk about is what chargers can you use with the Chevy Equinox EV? And before we dig into that, we need to figure out, well, what different plug types we can use. And the Chevy Equinox EV and all the other GM products are at a luxury because you can pretty much use almost any plug type that is out there, and I'm going to go over every single one you can use. So first thing is first, when you buy your car, it may have came with this, or maybe you had to buy it extra, but it came with a level 1, level 2 charger that probably looks like this. And this is what we call a J1772. This is just for level 1 and level 2 charging. So you've probably plugged this in at home and you're charging your car up. Then what we have CCS1. Now this is the standard that this car comes equipped with. So when you look at the charge port and you take out the little flap, that whole thing is a CCS1 port. And that is what you will use when you go to DC fast charge your Chevy Equinox EV. So maybe go to Electrify America or EV Go or Ayana or something like that. That is the plug that most of those sites are going to have. And you're going to see CCS is probably written somewhere. And you're going to take that bad boy, you're going to plug it in your car, and it's going to be the best experience when it comes to charging your EV. Now, The Chevy Equinox EV is, like I said earlier, at a luxury where you can use the Tesla Supercharger network, and that is a different plug, and that is what we call the NACS or the J3400. Most of the time you're going to see it labeled as NACS out in the wild, like Iona and other sites that are now using the NACS standard. So how do we use that? Because it's not the same port type. Well, we've got adapters. And what I'm going to do is kind of show you all those adapters really quick. I have deeper dives into these if you want to go look at those, but this will just be a quick overview. So if you use the Chevy app or my GM app, if you maybe have a different EV, you can order this bad boy right here. And this is the Tesla adapter. There it is. There's the Tesla port. And this is the CCS1N, so it's a little bit blurry. And this is provided after you pay, I believe it's $225, which is a steep-ish price, but here it is. And this is the one that you're recommended to use and according to them won't violate your warranty. Then we have some other options. We have the Electron Vortex. Here it is. It's a nice adapter from a very reliable company. I trust Electron, and that's why I would mention this. But here it is. You can buy this on their website. I'll put the price down below because they change them a lot, but that's where you put the Tesla plug in, and then this is where you plug it into your Equinox EV. It's got the button here, and it's got another button here where you can release the Tesla side. And then lastly, the A to Z EV adapter. This is the one that I think is the best built and easiest to use. So let me unzip it and show it to you. And this one actually comes with a case, which is nice. Keeps dust out, dirt out, anything like that. Here it is. It's a really nice adapter. It's got a lot of heft to it, well built. Metal pin. It has a protector over the pin so that can't bend or scratch or break. And what's really nice about it compared to the Tesla adapter and the Electron adapters has one button. So one lifts that. If you push the other one, it unlocks the Tesla end, and it's really easy to use. So when you're done charging, you push down, you pull out, you push down a little bit more, you pull out of there, and you are good to go. So I am officially at this point, my stance is I am recommending for you to use the Tesla one, but I am saying that the A to Z one is the best built, easiest to use, and it's the most affordable as well. And I have a code if you want to get it. Once all of the adapters get evaluated by UL, then I will make an official endorsement of an adapter, but you can probably assume where I might go as far as that is concerned. Since we're talking adapters and since we're talking the Tesla Supercharger network, I just want to mention a couple considerations. Now, it's really nice that we can access the Tesla Supercharger network, but there are some issues with it. A lot of the issues come with the V3 charging sites. The cables aren't long enough, and the way some of the spots are designed, it's hard to actually get the cable to the car. So I have some recommendations. If you pull up to a site and the Tesla Supercharger dispenser is right in the center of the parking spot, what you're actually gonna want to do, and Tesla recommends this, so like I'm not saying anything Tesla wouldn't agree with, is instead of pulling into the spot, you're basically gonna want to pull over the line that separates the spots. And I've done this a bunch. You have to pull really close, really close, like almost slightly over the curb so that you can even reach the cable to the car. Then you put the adapter in and plug in. You know, some Tesla drivers might be a little bit annoyed, but it is what it is. We're paying customers. Like I pay for a membership, so like I can use it however I please. In my opinion, I think Tesla needs to make the cables a little bit longer to accommodate all these cars they're now letting on the network. But that's for another day. If you come to a spot where the dispenser is like on the line, you can pull into the spot normally, but you're gonna have to, again, pull really close. I've had to do this so many times, and you know, it is what it is. I put the front camera on and I like inch close, and there's also the radar, so it's pretty reliable. So, or you could scoot it up, get out, look, scoot it, look, and then if you want to do that, or maybe if you have a passenger with you. It's not the best experience, but you get so many more charging options because of this. There is an extension cable coming out eventually from A to Z. I'll talk about that once I can get my hands on one. That will solve problems if you come to a congested Tesla site. But for me, most of the Tesla sites I go to are actually empty, and so it's never been a big deal. But I know on the West Coast, that's a little bit different of a story, or maybe during a holiday rush when there's a lot of people, it could be a little bit different of a story. Another consideration when you're using the V3, and these are in the video, so they look like this. They're the white and red with that black cable. Anyways, when you come to sites, you might see what is labeled or it's usually actually not labeled, but it's considered a towing site. So instead of it being where you pull in, it's going to be on the side somewhere. I see these a lot at Sheetz, and those are perfect spots for Equinox EV. And so I'll actually pull up to those. I can pull right up to it. It's on the right side for me, or the correct side. And I can just take it out, plug in, super easy. I don't block any spots, and everyone's happy. All the Tesla drivers are happy, and we can rejoice. And then the last consideration, just to be respectful to all those Tesla drivers, is when you come to a Tesla site, try and go as far to the right as possible because of our port location. It's on the front left, Tesla's on the rear left, and where they put the dispensers was built for the Tesla, not for the Equinox. So if you can go all the way to the right, it'll help minimize any Teslas being blocked so that we can have the maximum number of people charging at a time. Now, moving on to V4, these are much taller. There's no hole in the middle. I think they look pretty cool. These are perfect for the Equinox EV. The cables are plenty long. They're centered in the spot. All you got to do is pull as far close as possible still. You don't have to get as close, but you do have to get pretty close still. I've noticed this. And then you plug right in. You don't block any spots. Everybody's happy, and we can move on with our lives. I do want to mention, because in the press release, or maybe you've read it or you got an email from GM or whatever, they say most superchargers. And the superchargers that we don't have access to are what are called V2 superchargers, or they're the V3 chargers that are in the same area as V2. So like Tesla expanded some parking lots where it was V2 and then they added some V3 in the same parking lot. Those are not available. They did that to minimize confusion. So to help minimize confusion for you all, I recommend using the built-in navigation to locate all of the Tesla chargers you can use, because it knows which ones you can and cannot use. That's what I do. When I do my route planning, I use that as well. It's never been wrong in my experience. So just wanted to let everybody know that. And if you happen to end up at a site where you see it kind of looks like a version 3, but the cable is a little thicker and there's this silver collar near the handle, that's a V2 and you're not going to be able to use that. So just want to let you know that now. If maybe you're using another app like PlugShare or ChargeWay or something like that, I don't recommend that. I recommend to use the built-in navigation, or actually even the Chevy app. So we did a lot talking about Tesla because there's a natural transition there, but you can also use any public CCS charging network like Electrify America, EVgo, the list goes on. You can use your built-in navigation to find that. You can also use PlugShare, ChargeWay, like I was just talking about, to find chargers that work for you as well. And you just plug right in. It's generally, as far as using it, is a good experience. The reliability on those aren't as good all the time, and that's why I tend to stick to the Tesla Supercharger network. But there are some upcoming sites with Iona and BP Pulse and Mercedes-Benz where they're using really reliable chargers, and I'll talk about them later, but those work. Now that we've talked about DC fast charging, you can also charge your car at level 2 chargers. You can do that at home, at a friend's house, or there are sometimes level 2 chargers out in public. Remember, these don't charge as fast, but if you're going to be somewhere for an hour or 2 hours and you plug in, you're going to get a pretty reasonable charge. I was just at the mall with my son. They had level 2 chargers and they were actually complimentary, which happens sometimes. I plugged in, went in, and I got about 8, 9, 10% in about an hour, which isn't bad considering I didn't have to pay for it, and I also didn't have to like go wait at a DC fast charge or anything like that. So there are level 2 chargers out there. They're usually more reasonably priced compared to DC fast charging as well. For example, I have a local site here where I live, and the DC fast charging is 34 cents a kilowatt hour, and the level 2 charging is half that price at 17 cents a kilowatt hour. And that's because they're a little bit more affordable to install compared to DC fast charging, so the prices can be a little bit lower. Now, if you see where the price is really high, like DC fast charging price, you might have to really consider whether you want to use that or not. So I've been talking about DC fast charging, these different networks. What networks should you use? Well, whatever works, right? Some people might be tied to a location that doesn't have a lot of DC fast charging, and you just have to use what you have. But if you have the option to use these networks, I would highly recommend it. So obviously the Tesla Supercharger network is vast and it is super reliable. But like I said, it's not always the easiest to use, and you might have to like pull a little closer, or might have to wait because there might not be a spot available. Electrify America is very prevalent as well. It has been getting better. They've been putting in their next gen chargers. Generally they work, but they have had a lot of reliability issues. So I want to be upfront with you about that right now. Then we have EVgo, very similar. They've been upgrading a lot of their sites. Their reliability, in my experience, tends to be a little bit better than Electrify America, but they don't always have as many high power, like 350 kilowatt. A lot of times they'll have 100 kilowatt or 200 or 80, something like that. But they are another good option as well. We also have an up and coming charging network called Iona, which I am really big on. There's not a lot of these sites yet, but there will be. They are using Alpitronic hyperchargers, which are really reliable and are gonna work when you get there. So again, I recommend Iona. BP Pulse is another company that is using the Alpitronic hyperchargers, and those are gonna be coming at travel centers of America. They're gonna be coming at some major metropolitan airports. So if maybe you are going on a flight, you park your car, you come back, you go charge up, you head home, that could work for you too. And my understanding is that they're also going to be at BP gas station and some of their other properties as well. And then we also have the Mercedes-Benz high-powered charging network, again using Alpitronic. You see a theme here, and those are super reliable. They're using pretty nice areas as well. The pricing is a little bit high, but nothing terrible, and there's no membership as of right now. We also have the Pilot Flying J network. That is a GM EVgo Pilot Flying J partnership. Those are at a lot of Pilot and Flying J's. They're going to have pretty much the whole country covered, and you can probably travel anywhere you want in the country using that network. So those are pretty much all the chargers that I would recommend for you to use and consider. There are others out there like Francis Energy and Apple Green and a whole bunch of other ones, Shell Recharge. But for right now, I think those are good ones to focus on. You're going to be able to get anywhere in the country if you use a combination of those sites. Okay, so we've talked about where you can charge. Now we're actually going to talk about charging your car. So the first thing I want to say, and I want to be upfront, is the charging curve for the Chevy Equinox EV is not amazing, but it's not horrendous. I think that's the best way to say. It's fine, and you're going to be able to charge, and you're going to be able to get where you want to go, especially if you have a good plan. And I'm going to give you some of my recommendations in this section here to help you get where you want to be. So a lot of the charging is dependent upon outside variables, which is true of any EV, but particularly for the Chevy Equinox EV. In the heat, I've noticed that the Chevy Equinox EV really struggles. I think it's a combination of the car and maybe a little bit of the chargers. Things get too hot, and then it's got to slow it down, so it brings your charge rate down so that it can cool off, and then it will slowly work its way back up. Because of this can extend charging times, in my observation, compared to my best charging session and most consistent charging sessions that I've been having in more cool weather, is it can add about 15 minutes to your charge time, which may not seem like a lot, but if you're going on a really long road trip and maybe you've got 10 charging stops, that's over more than 2 hours of charging time added. That is not necessary. So just be aware of that. Again, I have some tricks for that later, what you could do. It's basically to not charge to 80%, to maybe keep it to 50%, but that can work. In the cold, it charges fine as long as you precondition and you're at a lower state of charge, maybe 10, 20% state of charge. So as long as you precondition, and I'm going to show you how to do that later, you're gonna be fine. And just, I guess, to define precondition, it's basically like warming up your battery so it's ready to go, it's ready to take in the energy, and hopefully give you max charging speeds. All right, so I need to talk about this, and if you've watched any of my videos, you've probably heard me mention the term the GM dip. And because this happens on all of the GM, formerly known as Altium products. And basically what happens is your car, it's charging great, it's going along great, and then what happens is the battery gets a little too warm, and then it derates, and then it will slowly build its way back up. Now I mentioned that in the heat it does that. That's basically like an exacerbated GM dip that can happen really early in a charging session. So again, I've done a bunch of charging tests, I've recorded data, and I've noticed that once the battery gets to about 46 degrees Celsius, that's when this dip occurs. Now I'm not expecting you all to get a OBD dongle and see what the battery temp is. But if you're charging along and then all of a sudden you notice it drops a lot, maybe at like 50-60% state of charge, you are experiencing the GM dip. When it's cooler out, I don't really notice too much of a dip. Maybe it's like 4 minutes, 5 minutes, and then it recoups. Again, my fastest session I've ever seen, and actually pretty consistently in cool weather, is about 36 to 37 minutes on Tesla Superchargers. So, that's a pretty reasonable time. And that is with a little bit of a dip. Nothing that we're really going to be super upset about. It's just when it's hotter outside and now your charging session becomes 42, 43, 51 was the longest charging session I've ever seen. That's when it becomes an issue, this GM dip. So if, it's cooler out and you want to charge at 80%, charge at 80%. But if it's hotter out, probably my recommendation for you would be to stay for, 15 to 20 minutes, as long as that's enough for you to get to your next charger and then move on. Because otherwise, if you stay, you're gonna really extend your charging time and make your trip take that much longer, which is, no one loves that, right? Now, I do wanna mention, I think that this dip can be fixed. I think that there's some thermal things that GM could work on to improve this. Hopefully this will improve over time. If it does, I will of course make a big deal about it, make a video about it, and I'll probably put something down in the comments in this video to direct you to that if you want to check out what the update has done for improving the charging curve of the Chevy Equinox EV. So to kind of finish up about the GM dip here, if you are someone who, you basically commute most of the time, you charge at home, you occasionally DC fast charge, like rarely, that's kind of like the situation I'm in, this car's perfect for you. Get it? You're going to be happy. You might already have it. You're probably happy because you don't have to DC fast charge. You don't have to deal with that headache. If you're someone who, again, you charge at home like me most of the time, and then you take road trips, long road trips, maybe 1 or 2 a year, it's going to be okay. It's not the end of the world. It truly isn't the end of the world. You can get places. I've done a boomerang, which simulates a road trip, and it was fine. I actually beat the ID4. It's really not that bad. But if you're someone, this is the third category, if you're someone who road trips a lot, DC fast charges a lot, maybe you live in an apartment and you need to DC fast charge regularly, you might want to consider not getting this car or finding a way to get level 2 installed where you live, just because DC fast charging this all the time could take a while. And it's not going to be the best ownership experience for you. That's just my personal opinion. I know some other people might have other opinions. People might be perfectly fine with just chilling in their car for extended periods of time, and that's cool if you like to do that. Like, go for it. But I just want to be really honest and transparent with everybody that if you like to road trip a lot or you have to charge a lot, this might not be for you. All right, everyone, so now that we've talked about the GM dip and how the curve isn't amazing, but not terrible, I want to talk about what state of charge range you want to live in. And you want to live in my opinion, and based on my experience, 20 to 80% on road trips and 30 to 80% on road trips. And here is why. If you live in these ranges, in my experience, it mitigates the GM dip. So for 20 to 80, you see a very slight dip. And for 30 to 80, I didn't even see the dip at all. I'm not saying it couldn't happen maybe if it's really hot outside. And because of that, you're gonna a consistent charging experience. So I actually have a chart here that I want everybody to look at. And I compare the best 10 to 80 I've ever had, which was about 35.5 minutes, to the worst 10 to 80 I had, which was about 51 minutes. And then I compare the 20 to 80 and 30 to 80. Now, obviously, this best case scenario is what you want. Okay, you add about, in 35 minutes, you add almost 170 or so miles of range, which is great if you just want to plug in from 10, go to 80 and leave. But again, that GM dip can occur. When you look at the red, that's with the major, massive GM dip. You can see it kind of sticks with the 20 to 80 for a little bit, and then eventually they overtake it after that 25 to 30 minute period, and it takes almost an additional 15, 16 minutes to have about the same amount of range added. And again, this range added is based on my 70-mile-an-hour range test. All these numbers would be a little bit higher if you use the GM calculation, and some others have actually gotten 300 on highway. This is just my loop, and those are the results I got. Now, when you look at the 20 to 80, you can see that they're pretty close to each other, and in 25 minutes, you add about 120, 125 miles of range for 70 miles an hour. And I think that's great. That's about 2 hours of driving. And that's honestly the most that I can do driving wise at a time. So you plug in for 25 minutes, you go use the bathroom, grab a snack, come back, and you're pretty much gonna have to unplug and move on with the rest of your life. And even if you only charge for 20 minutes, you're adding about 100 miles of range, which is pretty great as well. And you're gonna avoid that GM dip, and you're gonna maximize your trip. You're gonna be able to go to the next charger a little bit faster. The battery's gonna be cool enough, and you're gonna have consistent charging experience, which in my opinion is awesome. You could probably do this similar concept, going from 10%, but only charging up to maybe 50 or 60, and you'll probably save even more time. But not a lot of people feel comfortable going down to 10%. I feel comfortable going down that low, but I know a lot of people like to stick around that 15, 20, 30% state of charge. Okay, everybody, it's time to talk about the elephant in the room, and that's charging above 80%. I know people all over the internet say don't charge above 80. Some people even get rude and nasty to people about it at chargers because they want to plug in. And at the end of the day, you're entitled to charge as long as you want at a charger. But at least for the Equinox, I want to explain why I wouldn't do that. And I've done a bunch of range tests, and what that means is I have to charge up to 100%. And I do that for you all and for science, and I try to do it at times when it's not going to interfere with other people. And to go from 80%, or I think I actually had 79 in my one, I pulled like a receipt, 79% to 100%. It took me an hour. An hour. At 80%, you have enough range to move on to the next charger. But if you stay there, think about it. If you're getting 20% and you're getting it at, let's go with mine. So 264 miles. You're getting 52 more miles in an hour. That's less than a mile a minute added, and it's just not worth your time. Unplug and move on. I'm just going to be honest. Now, I will say there are going to be times maybe, well, hopefully not, maybe this won't happen much anymore, but there's a charger, it's really hot outside, or maybe it's really cold outside, and it's really far away, and you have to charge to 100%, then charge up to 100%, because you got to do what you got to do. But if there are other chargers available that are, 80, 100, 120 miles away, unplug, move on, save yourself some time. But again, it's totally up to you. I'm just saying it's going to take an hour to go from 80 to 100. Now I want to talk about road trips and road trip strategy. Honestly, you need to do what's best for you and your family, so do whatever you feel comfortable with, but generally I would just not charge above 80% when possible to save yourself time. So if you want to charge 10 to 80, you can expect a charging time from anywhere from 36 minutes to 51 minutes, depending upon temperature, and then move on with your life. A lot of people like to do it that way. It is certainly not the most efficient. Okay, now, how would I road trip with my family? That's what I'll talk about first. So if I'm with my family, I'm with you all. Like I want to have enough range so I know to get that I can get where I need to go. But I'm probably not going to stay to 80% unless I have to. So what will I do? I'll probably charge it down to 10 or it's not charge, drive down to 10 or 20% state of charge, and then stay for about 20 minutes. And if that gets me, to 60%, 65%, good. If it gets me higher, great. I have found, with my family, we stop, we get out of the car, we got to walk the dog, we got to go use the bathroom. By the time we get back, we have more than enough range to get to the next charger that's on the route planner in the Chevy Equinox EV. Or even if I'm just planning it myself, because sometimes I like to do it that way, there's more than enough. And you'll probably find that as well in your experience. But that's what I would say, go down to 10 or 20. Stay there for about 20 minutes or so, enough for everybody to do their thing, and you'll probably have enough to get to the next charger. That'll be fine. Additionally, like I said earlier, that 20 to 80, 30 to 80, you could do that too, where you just I want to get there at 20, charge up to 80, and you can expect for, I believe, the 20 to 80 is about, it's like just like 30 minutes-ish, and then the 30 to 80 is about 27 minutes. Time-wise. So that's what you're looking at if you want to do those options. And then how would I road trip if it was just me and I'm trying to maximize my driving? So I do like to go down to about 10%. And then I'm only going to stick around until I have enough to get to the next charger. So what I do is once I arrive at the charger, at whatever state of charge, hopefully it's around 5 to 10%, I put in my next destination. And what will happen is it'll show, you'll arrive at negative 30% state of charge. And so it'll add chargers, and it will try to add chargers. I stop it. And then what I do is I charge up and I watch until that number gets to about 10%. That's what I usually feel pretty comfortable with. And then I leave. I unplug and I leave once it says 10%. It works great for me. It's going to be the most bang for your buck as far as maximizing your time. And you'll move along. If you want to do that with your family, you can do that as well. But usually when I want a road trip, we're like in no rush. So, we're not in a hurry, but sometimes you're in a hurry and you want to save as much time as the charger. And that is what I would recommend for you to do. And I do want to comment on the navigation. I find it to be relatively accurate. In mild to hot weather, I actually found it to be a little too conservative. So I always end up with more state of charge than I thought I was going to end up most of the time. And then as far as wintertime, it's usually pretty spot on, or maybe you'll lose a couple percentages here or there. But usually it's pretty accurate and you can rely upon it. I would say if you leave that 10% buffer, you're definitely going to make it based on what the route planner is saying. Now I want to talk about battery preconditioning with the Chevy Equinox EV. You've got two options. So you can route to a charger, or you can just plan a route to your destination. It will add chargers and it will automatically precondition your battery, which is really, really nice. And then you don't even have to think about it. So that's probably what I would recommend. Just plug it in, drive, and let it do its thing. If you like to have a little bit more control, or maybe you're in a situation where you needed to start earlier than you think the car thinks you should, then you can manually precondition. You go into the charging menu, into settings, and then in there you can do manual preconditioning. I'm going to cut to how to do that right now. So I'm going to show the two methods of preconditioning. First off, you can just route somewhere. So I've routed to a charger pretty close so that the message will pop up for us. But if you set like a long trip, say you want to go to, I don't know, Disneyland, it'll do the whole trip for you. And then as you're driving along your route, it'll say when it's going to precondition. But just for example's sake, here we go. Press start. There it is. And then this message pops up. Getting ready for fast charging. You can plug in at any time. That means that the battery is starting to precondition. And that's pretty much it. So that'll pop up. Then let me show you one more thing. So when you go to the charging menu, which I was already in, and you click here, it says fast charge prep. Now here it already says ready to plug in at any time. So I'm going to stop that. And it'll look like this, just like an athlete. Your battery needs a warm up to perform its best. So when you click here, press start, and it'll start to warm up. And again, gives you the same message, says ready to plug in at any time. But if I looked at the battery temperature, I'd know it's not warm enough at this point. So it would probably take anywhere from 20 minutes to maybe 45 minutes, maybe even an hour if it's extremely cold, to be warm enough to charge. But again, that temperature is targeted for when you're at a lower state of charge, 10, 20, 30% state of charge. I do want to mention, as far as preconditioning and the summertime, I've done the preconditioning and I've noticed no improvement to my charge session. So theoretically it should be able to cool it down, but I haven't noticed anything of note. I also didn't have the ability to check battery temperatures in the summertime. So this summer I'm going to do a little bit more experimenting to check out what's going on there. But hopefully, like I said earlier in the video, there'll be some software updates and maybe it'll cool the battery a little bit better. So this next part is probably one of the most confusing things for EV drivers, and especially for new EV drivers, and that's the max charging rate. What max charging rate can you expect? And I just want to say this off the top. The max charging rate is just that. It's a max. It doesn't stay there for a really long time. For the Equinox, you can expect to see it in perfect conditions, maybe about 10 minutes or so before it starts to walk its way down. But for the Chevy Equinox EV, the max you can expect to see is about 150 to 152 kilowatts. And you're generally going to see this from 10% to about 38%. And I've noticed very consistently, and I have this in a bunch of charging logs, at about 38%, that's when it takes its first step down. And it does that to cool the battery and keep things safe. So that's a pretty reasonable amount of time. And to add 28% of the battery is actually pretty good in about 10 or so minutes. I'll put the exact time down below. But anyways, now this is the most confusing thing. So you roll up to a charger and it says 200 kilowatts, or maybe it says 50 kilowatts, and you plug in and you don't get 200, or well, you would never get 200, but you don't even get 150, and you'd expect to get 150, or it says 50, but you get like 38, and like, what's going on there? So I'm going to try to explain this as best I can, and if you have any questions, you can leave them down below in the comments. With the Chevy Equinox EV, because of the way the battery is constructed, its pack voltage is really low compared to other cars. I'm not going to explain what all that stuff is. If you want, I can explain it down in the comments. But basically, what it means is the advertised charge speeds for chargers are based on higher voltage, so 400 volts. And the Equinox is about 300 volts. So basically, when you see a max charge speed advertised at a charging site, you're probably going to get lower than that in a lot of scenarios. So what I've done is I've actually gone over about every advertised charge speed you could expect to see and what charge speeds you could expect to get. So first off, if you see a 350 kilowatt or higher charger, you're going to get the full speed. You're going to get the 152 until about 38%. Then it's going to dip. Things are going to be great. Most Electrify Americas have a 350 kilowatt charger. Iona and Mercedes-Benz and BP Plus, they have 400 kilowatt chargers. So if you plug into those, you're going to get what you expect. For 200 kilowatt chargers, and I don't see these a bunch, but they are out there. Most of the time, you're going to get the advertised 150 kilowatts, especially with like the ChargePoint 200 kilowatt chargers. But there are some chargers labeled 200 kilowatts out there, and I'm talking to you, EVgo. There's a site I have really close to me. And if I plugged in at that site, I would actually get closer to 60 kilowatts. They're just mislabeled. It's really misleading and really confusing. And I wanted to kind of mention that to you all, that if you go to a place and it's 200 and you get really low, it could just be mislabeled. But anyways, generally 200 kilowatts, you should get full speed. But for some, EVgo, you're not. Now let's move down to 150 kilowatt chargers. You're going to see these a lot of times at Electrify America, and you can expect about 100 to 112 kilowatts. Now, you actually might go to an Electrify America plug-in and get more than that, 130 kilowatts maybe. And that's because some 150 kilowatt chargers for Electrify America can actually output a little bit more, but they don't advertise it. So if that happens, you can just be happy, be like, woo, I got more than I thought I was gonna get, and it's a great day. Now, moving on to 62.5, that's a weird number, but these typically tend to be the charge point units. They kind of have these like little arms that swing out. They're generally pretty reliable. There's a good number of these around where I live. And when you plug into these, what's going to happen is you're going to get about 46 to 48 kilowatts. So not the advertised 62.5, and it's not terrible. And that's by design, again, because of the way the battery is. So I just want to let you all know that is the charge speed you should expect. So if you see it, don't freak out. Another comment is 60 kilowatts. If you see a 60 kilowatt charger, there are a lot of Blink chargers that are 60 kilowatts, or maybe it could be 120 or 180 as well. But for those, the 60 kilowatt, you can expect to see about 45 kilowatts, which isn't that terrible, all things considered. And then lastly, for a 50 kilowatt charger, you can expect to see about 37 to 38 kilowatts. There are still a lot of 50 kilowatt chargers around, especially in my area, and you plug in and that's what you're gonna get. So again, don't be shocked if you see that. That is by design. It is just the way the Chevy Equinox EV is made. And hopefully those chargers are at places where maybe you can go, get some food, do something like that, go to the library, maybe a little bit more extended dwell time, and then it won't really matter that those speeds are a little bit slower than you would have expected. So that is everything about DC fast charging. Now we're gonna move on to level 1 and level 2 charging. And I'm gonna say this right off the top. If you can charge at home, charge at home. It is an amazing experience. We charge at home. You can see the Equinox behind me right now. It's plugged in. I'm actually testing something with the scheduled charging. But anyways, it's just a great experience. You come home, plug in, go hang out with your family. In the morning, you unplug, you drive. You don't have to stop at a gas station or anything like that. It's just an amazing experience, and I highly recommend it. So when you bought your car, you either got for free like I did, or maybe you purchased a level 1, level 2 charger. It should look like this. I think there might be another version that's black as well, but it has the J1772 that we talked about earlier. That's the level 2 that plugs into the top port, and then it has this little box here, and it has a place where you can put an adapter. So you can either put in the NEMA 515, which goes into your standard household outlet. You snap it in like such, and then you plug it in and you can charge, and that's gonna get you pretty slow speed. So I do want to mention, when you initially plug in with level 1, it's gonna default to 8 amps, and 8 amps is very slow. It's about 0.96 kilowatts, rounded up to 1, so 1 kilowatt. Not very fast, but in your car, it will actually ask you if you want to switch it up to 12 amps, and if you move it up to 12 amps, you're going to get about 1.44 kilowatts. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, when you're doing level 1 charging, that's almost 50% improvement in charging speed. So you're definitely going to switch it up to 12 amps. I do recommend, and people think I'm crazy for this, but it might be worth it to have an electrician come check out whatever NEMA 515 outlet you want to use, because if it's a low quality outlet, even though you're just passing through 8 amps, or even if you bump it up to 12 amps, those weren't designed to pull current continuously, and it could fail, so that it could melt or cause a thermal event, which no one wants. So to me, just have an electrician come check out. Hopefully, if you have a newer house, you'll have a higher quality outlet somewhere in your garage, but I just wanted to mention that. And then you can you can unplug that, and you can opt to put on this, and this is the NEMA 1450. Here we go. And it looks like that. And you can have this outlet installed in your house, or maybe you already have one, which would be nice. And this is for this charger that comes with the Equinox EV is going to go up to 32 amps, and that's going to provide you about 7.6 kilowatts, which is much, much faster, almost 6 or 7 times faster. So it's going to save you a lot of time. If I'm being honest, this is all you really need, is about 32 amps. If you have more cars like we do, you might want to bump up to 40 or 48 because we do have to switch the plug sometimes if we want to plug in. But honestly, 7.6 is fine. You don't need to go up higher, at least for the Equinox. If you get bigger battery cars, yeah, now you're talking maybe you need some higher speeds. So now, if you want to get those higher speeds, with the NEMA 1450, you know, it has to come with a 50 amp circuit. The electrician's going to do it. They're going to take care of that. They're going to do all that stuff for you. You don't have to worry about the calculations or whatever. You can go up to 40 amps, and that is going to give you charging speeds of about 9.6 kilowatts. So it's going to shave off a little bit more time, and that's the setup I have here in my garage. And you can do that. You'd actually have to buy another charger. The one that comes with your car is not going to go up to 40 amps. But I have a bunch of chargers on my channel if you want to check those out, or you can just look up chargers online. Electron is always very reliable. Emporia. I have an EV Co that I really like. ChargePoint, United Chargers is another really phenomenal, well-built charger. So a lot of good options out there. And you can go check out Tom Malogny's channel, State of Charge. That's what he does. He's the king when it comes to EV charging. And then you could, if you wanted to, you could get a wall-mounted unit, and you could get it hardwired to your box, and it has to be hardwired. And you can even go up further to 48 amps, and that's going to max you out at 11.5 kilowatts, and that is the most that the Chevy Equinox EV can take. So if you want to do that, you want to get the most bang for your buck, you're going to want to get a 48 amp wall mounted charger hardwired to your box, and you're going to be set with that. All right, so here I have a chart comparing level 1 and level 2 charge times based on the amps that you have set up. So like I was talking about with level 1, if you have just 8 amps, which is kind of what it defaults to, you get 0.96 kilowatts. And to go from 60 to 80% state of charge, it will take 17 hours and 42 minutes. And you're going to add 3.6 miles per hour. So that's quite a long time. And you can see here, if you just bump it up to 12 amps on a outlet that you know is safe, you're going to get 1.4 kilowatts. And it will cut your charge time down by 5 hours and almost 40 minutes, and you're going to add 5.25 miles per hour. That's pretty reasonable. You know, you get home, if you charge that much, you plug in, and then you wake up the next morning, you'll probably be good to go if you really want to try and live off level 1. I do recommend going level 2 if you can, and here I have a couple options with 16, 32, 40, and 48 amps. I'm not going to talk about all of these, but the one that comes with your car is at 7.6 kilowatts, which is the 32 amp charger, and that'll get you from 60 to 80 in 2 hours and 14 minutes. Pretty reasonable, and like I said, that's really all you need. But if you want to get more, you can, and that is adding 28.52 miles per hour, and this is done based off the EPA 319 miles. Then at my house, I have this 9.6 kilowatt level 2 at 40 amps, and it can recharge my car from 60 to 80% in an hour and 46 minutes, which is very reasonable. And if I have to have a turnaround that day, I can get charged up, and that's 36 miles per hour added. And lastly, the max that the Equinox can do is 11.5 kilowatts at 48 amps, and it only shaves a little bit of time off, so you can see why, to me, it's not really worth it to hardwire, at least for the Equinox, because you're not really going to make that much of a difference, and that's 43 miles per hour added. I hope this chart is helpful. Feel free to pause, take a picture of it. That way you can kind of decide which charging situation will be best for you. Now, I did say if you can charge at home, you should charge at home, but some people can't. And also sometimes you're on the road and you're at a hotel or something like that, and you need to level 2 charge, or maybe you're just at the grocery store. So there is public level 2 charging out there. There's a bunch of different brands. Literally, most companies have some version of level 2. Especially, there's a lot of, in my area, at least Shell Recharge has a bunch of level 2. And they just purchased Volta, so that would be under Shell Recharge. SemaConnect is out there, and a bunch of other brands. But anyways, you can do that. And again, since we have the Chevy Equinox EV, and actually this applies to all EVs, you can use Tesla destination charging. So these are not superchargers. The handle looks exactly the same, but they're a little bit smaller units. And for these, you would need to use an adapter. Funny story, I actually don't have an adapter for Tesla to J1772, which is that level 2, okay, to this plug. But they are out there. A to Z has a really good one. Electron has one. And you can get those, and you put the destination charger into it, plug it into your J1772 port on your Equinox, and you're good to go. And what's really cool is a lot of these Tesla destination chargers are free, and they're actually pretty high powered, up to 19.2 kilowatts. So your car will take the full 11.5 kilowatts. So say if you go to a hotel and you see maybe there's some, Clipper Creek is another pretty common public one. You see some Clipper Creek ones, maybe hotel installed, and then there's the Tesla ones. Use the Tesla ones because they're probably going to be a lot faster and charge your car up faster. But that's just my opinion. It's actually not opinion, that's fact. they're going to be faster. There are some destination chargers from Tesla out there that you actually have to pay to use. And the payment is not terrible, but you will need to get the Tesla app to activate that. And usually on the unit, it tells you how to do that. And I actually have a little video clip that I'm probably overlaying right now of a Tesla destination charger. And what's really cool about the one in this video clip is it has like a magic dock scenario where you can push in and you get an adapter for your car, which is super cool and really nice of Tesla to do. All right, so now we're gonna talk about the charging menu. Before I hop in the car and show you everything with the charging menu, I do want to mention a couple things. So the plug-in and startup level 2 charging function works great. I've noticed with the you can do it where you do like a delay charging, you can have precondition. It doesn't work on every model of level 2 charger, so just be aware of that. I've been having issues with EVco right now. First off, I love the EVco unit. I want to be really clear. I really do like it. The cable length is great. It's worked great for us. The app is really awesome. But just for some reason, it faults out, and I've been working with them, and hopefully we can work a solution to that, and they can push out a patch to everybody. But that does work, and that's the test I'm doing right now. I have another unit. I have a actually it's an Electron unit. They just sent me. I'm reviewing, and I'll put a review out on that soon. And it's working perfectly fine for the delay, and it should start charging soon, but it's not yet. But I did want to mention that I've been having some issues. And then the big elephant in the room, and I'll probably talk about it once I'm in the car, but the schedule, I've been having issues getting it to work, and others have been having issues to get it to work. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong. So if you're out there and you've been able to get the scheduling to work, leave it down in the comments so you can educate me. That way I can get it to work. It just doesn't seem to actually activate for some reason when I've tested it out. And I have tested it out with the charger that Chevy provided and have had issues. So let's hop in the car and check out the whole charging menu for the car. So here is the charging menu. I'm just gonna go over this really quick for everybody in case you have any questions. I have actually gone over this already in the infotainment video I've done, but here it is again, just in case you want it. This is the main display. It says charge now, which means when you plug in, you'll charge immediately. You can set your state of charge to whatever you want. I think it goes all the way down to 50. Double check. Well, it won't let me go, but I'm pretty sure it's 50% is the lowest it'll let you charge to. There we go. Must be at least 50. But I leave it set at 80, and I'll talk about that later in the video. Then you have charge later. So charge later is if say you're going on a trip, and the next day you're going to leave at 5 a.m. in the morning, so you go to charge later. You go to 5 a.m. Maybe you want the cabin to be preconditioned because you park outside. You press that, and then you plug in your car. It'll then wait, and your car will be fully charged to whatever you have it set at 5 a.m. and your cabin will be warm, which is a nice feature. Like I said already, I have noticed some issues with some brands of chargers, so just double check before you're counting on it for a major trip. So I'm going to put that back to charge now. Here, it just shows you some local chargers. So maybe I want to go to the Gettysburg. charger, 8 connectors available. And what's really nice is if you want to use a supercharger, you can actually, or any of the chargers that are in here for the most part, you can activate the charge from inside. So it's, I think it's Superchargers, ChargePoint, EV Connect, Flow Canada, Iona. I think those are all you can activate within the car. So I'd click here, start charging. It even shows you price details. There it is. I would recommend if you use the Tesla Supercharger network to not activate in here because you can get a membership and then get a discount. But that's pretty nice. Actually, hold up. It said photos. I've never noticed that before. Hold up. Oh, because it was just this one. Photos. Well, let's see what happens here. I've never looked at this before. Oh, it's taking a while to load. Oh, there we go. Oh, you can look at. Interesting. Fun. Okay, well that's kind of neat. Then here you can create a schedule. So I want to just clarify, when I said schedule earlier, I have actually gotten the schedule to work. I have not been able to get the time of use to work properly. Let me stop that. Let me go back to charging. So here, click a day, maybe I want, or multiple days, maybe I want for the week, I want it to be done by, I leave at 5 in the morning, I want to precondition, save, and close, and that should work for you. I have gotten this to work. What I haven't gotten to work is in here. And let me just show you all now, preferred charge times. So this is if you have time of use charging somewhere to cheaper rates. And I played around and it didn't work. So if anyone's gotten this to work, let me know. But I actually did have the schedule working because I somehow accidentally created a schedule for like yesterday, and because I rarely use this, and it kept going to complete by a certain time. I'm like, what is going on? And then I realized the schedule was set. So this has worked for me. If you're having any issues, let me know, and maybe we can figure it out. In here, you can set your home charging location. That's just basically so you have certain settings for when you're home, and then the settings are different when you're away. You can remove or update that. You can do your charge cord type. So this is where I was talking about when you plug in, you can either change it from reduced amps to maximum, which is 12 amps. It gives you a warning that someone should check it out. Unable to save your updates. Try again. Oh, well, that's interesting. Okay, well, it looks like it's saved. But that's where you would switch from 8 amps to 12 amps right there. I have level 2, so I leave it on level 2. And then we have that we've already talked about. Fast charge rep, preconditioning temperature. You can change it here if you'd like, or you can actually change it back at this part of the menu. Just click right here, and you can. It's the same menu. And let me show that again, because some people say I go too fast. So preconditioning, that pops up there. And you can also access that here, preconditioning temperature. And then I went over preferred charge times. So that's pretty much everything you need to know about the charging menu in the Equinox EV. All right, so that was the menu, everybody. Lots of options in there for you to find charging, precondition. So it's a great little system there that Chevy has set up for the most part. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to talk about here, everybody, is how to keep your battery healthy. It's really important. You spend a lot of money on this car, and you want to take care of it just like you'd want to take care of any other car. And the good news is most data coming back to us is actually saying that batteries don't degrade as fast as people thought they were going to, and they're holding up pretty well. There usually is a lot of degradation within the first 2 years. Maybe you'll see 5-10% tops, but after that it really slows down, and you can have a pretty consistent amount of degradation. And our ID4 has about 10% degradation. We've driven it a lot in about 1.5 years, almost 2 years. So it's had about 3 or 4 years worth of life. And I don't, like, when we're on a road trip, I don't even think about it. Like, it doesn't even, like, I don't notice it because I just go to the next charger I plug in. So it's just not as big a deal as people make it out to be. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be conscious about taking care of our batteries. So first thing, what should you do? Well, you should stick to about 30 to 80% state of charge as where you want to live on the regular. And I'm not talking about for a road trip where you want to drive to 30 and charge up to 80. What I'm talking about is, I charge up to 80%, I go to work, I come back, I'm at 70. I could leave it there. I drive to work again, I come back, now I'm at 60. I could leave it there. Do it again, do it again, do it again. Once I get to 30, I really should plug in and charge back up. You don't really want to leave your car below 30% state of charge. Below 20 is really not good, and if you're leaving it in the 0s to 10s, like, you're going to damage your battery. I'm not like an engineer, but if Engineering Explained, he has a really good explanation of why you don't want to leave it at a low state of charge. And then the same on the upper end, you really shouldn't charge it above 80%. There is a little bit of a buffer, but if you're consistently charging and leaving your car at 100% state of charge, you are going to slowly degrade your battery faster than someone who maybe lives in that 30 to 80% range. And again, the Engineering Explained video explains why you don't want to leave it at a high state of charge. Now, I get some people, maybe they live in an apartment and they don't want to go to a charger a lot, but just think about the trade-off of, well, do you want to degrade your battery faster and then have less range over time? That's totally up to you. But I would recommend, at least for the Equinox, charge it to 80%, wear it down to 30% minimum, and then charge it back up. For me, I actually do 80%, bring it down to probably like 60, 65, and then I plug it back in. I don't even go that low, but it's up to you. It's your preference, your lifestyle, and whatever you want to do with that. I know I just said, don't charge it to 100%, don't get down to 0%, but it's okay to occasionally do that. Sometimes it's actually, in fact, even good for the car to go up to 100% every once in a while, so it kind of recalibrates everything and the battery knows what's going on. So when should you do that? I recommend at the beginning of a road trip, charge up to 100%. So the way I do it is I have delayed charging, so it charges up to 100% right when we're going to leave, so I minimize the amount of time I'm spent at 100% state of charge. And then on the other end, when I'm road tripping, and I'm sure most people aren't going to do this, but I'm not afraid to go down to really low percentage. Just once I do, I'm going to a charger, I get to the charger, I plug in, and I charge it back up as quick as possible. So you can touch 0, you can touch 100, but don't live there if you want to preserve and keep your battery as healthy as possible. And then again, too, sometimes you got to charge up to 100% to make long stretches, and that's okay. Just once you unplug, get driving, it's going to start to use energy, and you're going to be A-OK. Okay, everyone, so that is it with my ultimate charging guide for the Chevrolet Equinox EV. I really hope you all found this video helpful. There's a lot of really useful information. If you did, please remember to give a like and a subscribe. All of those help the channel grow. Also, share it. Maybe you're at a dealer and they don't know what they're talking about. Share their videos so maybe they can learn a little bit, so they can communicate accurately to people. I made sure I waited to put this video, so I had a bunch of data and a bunch of personal experience so I could confidently tell you all what I know. So again, thanks for watching. If you haven't already, like I said, please remember to give a like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, follow me on all the social medias, and I will catch you all next time.